Every day we get asked questions about ingredients that will help with exertion, performance, recovery, growth, and quite often I kind of shrug it off because there's not a lot that seriously helps. But today I'm going to get more excited about data than I think I ever have in a video about a pre-workout ingredient. So strap in and let's talk about Synactiv lowering perceived exertion and lowering post-workout inflammation. So obviously we've talked a lot about Synactiv, and I get a lot of questions on when it needs to be used for the best benefits. Obviously we know that Synactiv helps a lot with getting rid of senescent cells, older cells towards the ends of their life cycle that need to be taken care of so that we can have fresh new tissue. It also lowers a lot of markers of inflammation, but up until this point we've had a lot of in vitro data. Today we're going to be talking about live human in vivo data with a 3-centimeter biopsy into the leg. Now for the data to be understood a little bit better, we got to define a few different biomarkers that they used here. Obviously for the perceived exertion, that's kind of subjective, and this placebo effect can have a big effect on that. But because of that 3-centimeter biopsy that they used, we have a lot of biomarkers that we can actually bypass that placebo effect and see the actual effect on the muscle. So first one up here, P16-INK4A. Now this is a protein found in cells that can replicate. It inhibits cell regeneration, and so this is kind of a helpful marker for muscles that are newer or older. Now one thing that's important here is the amount of this marker does not change between old and young cells, but the expression of it does. So as that expression increases, it marks the cells for getting rid of them. That clearance and removal is important for creating new tissue, get rid of old tissue, and it's a big part of what Synactiv does, as we talked about before. So we want lower expression levels so that we have younger and fresher tissue. As a side note, we already know that exercise helps out with this, but we want to see if there's a supplement that can even improve it even more. Now, EPC is another biomarker that was shown in here, and this specifically contributes to cell regeneration in muscle tissue. After weight training, EPC is released from the bone marrow up to 6 hours, and by 24 hours, it's back at baseline. EPC is a good marker for how hard a muscle is trained. We see this quite often when we're talking about training to failure and stuff like that. This is a big one for perceived exertion and how hard the training was happening in this study. A lot of times when I read data, you guys will hear me often joke about whether or not these people were really training all that hard. MPO is another one that we're going to talk about here. It's an enzyme that carries out important immunity and inflammation defenses. So this kind of helps mark inflammation responses or immunity responses. And the main goal here in this study, just to give you guys an idea, is to have this back at baseline as quickly as possible. Now lastly, RG1 is going to be what they used in this study. RG1 is the ginsenoside that is within Synactiv. Synactiv, if you guys remember, like a lot of NuLiv ingredients, is a blend of some ingredients, and quite often they will study some of the standardized single constituents within the product to kind of get a better idea of what each one does on its own. So this is a study not on Synactiv as a whole, but just one of the constituents within it, which is one of a few powerful constituents that they combine in different ratios. If you're curious about this, I did a whole video of breaking down NuLiv ingredients and the different combinations of these RG1s and RB1s and some other ones coming from ginsenosides or astragalosides and others. So if you're interested in that, there is a whole video on that. Today we're going to only be talking about RG1. So we're calling this the Synactiv Ginseng Squat Study. Like I said, it's not just Synactiv. There's only one part of it, but it lends truth to how Synactiv actually works in the body. So 12 healthy college-age males with at least 2 years of weight training were recruited. It's not a huge population, but for something like this, it's probably hard to get quite a few people. As you guys will note, we're going to be talking about having some rather large needles poked into their legs after training pretty hard. So they followed a double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover study. Participants had to stop training for a whole week before starting this. After a week, muscle biopsies 3 centimeters in deep were taken to establish a baseline of all these biomarkers. So they should have had low markers of inflammation and immunity responses and stuff like that. At least 10 days later, the first squat exercise challenge was beginning. Participants were told again not to train for a week before the challenge. So what is this challenge day? They fasted for 12 hours, which honestly isn't great for what the training was going to be, but they actually had them 1 hour before the training obviously can consume the 5 milligrams of RG1 in, ironically, an Herbalife formula. I don't know who got Herbalife into this study. I wish it would have been from someone better, but an Herbalife Formula 1 protein shake, which contains both carbs and protein, which is that's good. I'm glad they had some carbs in before doing this workout because it gets a little intense, literally in intensity. So they stretched, they warmed up, And they determined a 1 rep max using Jay Hoffman's NSCA design. So this means it did 10 reps at 50%, 5 reps at 75%, and a final set of 1 rep at 90 to 95% of that 1 rep max. Now they rested 5 minutes after that, and they performed a 1 rep max squat protocol with a qualified trainer. This had to be parallel here. This protocol includes 3 to 5 attempts at progressively heavier weights, 3 to 5 rest intervals until a new 1 rep max is achieved. Upon completion, they recorded the RPE, which is the rate perceived exertion, which is a popular way of programming in powerlifting, if you're familiar with it, where you internally, gauge out of 10, 1 to 10, what the exertion was. Again, kind of like the placebo effect, this is a little bit subjective and skewed based on how you felt, and I don't always trust that everyone knows their limitations in this case. But anyway, they recorded the RPE using verified methods, supposedly, and sent them home. Now, 24 hours after that, they came in for a muscle biopsy. So they had the baseline before, and now they're getting one 24 hours after to see what the biomarkers looked like afterwards. Were they inflamed? Were they having an immune response? Did they train hard enough? All of these things were going to be able to be quantified. 3 weeks washout, so they let them do the thing, and again, came back in with the opposite treatment. So if they had the treatment, the RG1 for this one, they came back for the placebo, or vice versa. Again, they did not train for 7 days before the second challenge day. So what were the results? Well, first off, it had easier training. Their rate of perceived exertion with RG1 1 hour pre-workout was considerably lower. Second off, they had incredibly less inflammation the day later. So first one here, athletes had significantly reduced rate of perceived exertion during the squat challenge. Now, knowing that ginseng is an adaptogen, this isn't super surprising. We don't know the exact mind-muscle pathways that are being activated here, but it shouldn't really come to a huge surprise that ginseng helped lower the rate of perceived exertion. The researchers can only hypothesize what exactly happened here, but they theorize there's some action of RG1 that facilitates better muscle recruitment from the brain itself. So it's pretty awesome. By taking this product, they're theorizing that you're able to utilize your motors a little bit better. The second part is really what's cool for the overall growth. Yes, we are stimulating with more strength here. For progressive overload, that's going to be a huge thing. We're going to be able to move bigger weights at more volume, higher intensity over time. But the second part of being able to recover, that's where the muscle growth comes. We always say the actual growth occurs at home when you're eating, resting, and sleeping. So 24 hours back, they had significantly less inflammation from the RG1 from Synactiv. It was indicated by lower levels of P16-INK4A mRNA expression, which is lowered by 35% more than placebo from baseline, and MPO mRNA, which you mentioned as well, being 39% more than placebo from baseline. This is despite the fact that EPC, remember this is the one that measures how hard they trained, rose in both groups. Now that wasn't even statistically different, which was kind of interesting because with the RG1, they had lower rates of perceived exertion. So they did not feel like they were training as hard, or the weights were not as difficult, but they still had just as much of a response from the training. They trained just as hard. And that all being said, the EPC rose in both groups by about double, indicating that they did exert quite a bit. So ultimately, what does this mean? RG1 from Synactiv not only made training easier, which again, this is a tool that you can then use to move bigger weights, move bigger volumes, move at higher intensities, and apply more mechanical tension to your muscle, but then also improved recovery afterwards. So you're stimulating better, breaking muscles down better, and you're regenerating them better. Overall, what more could you ask for in an ingredient? Synactiv is obviously an ingredient that we've been loving a lot. If you've seen my stories, I'm taking a lot of Ghost Legend, which has it in there. I'm taking a lot of Nutriviral Leg Day. Some days I'm taking the liquid shots on my own. I'm getting in a lot of it. And NuLiv has said that a lot of these shots actually are at 200 milligrams. They have a lot of love for 200 milligrams. A lot of their athletes that they work with enjoy it at 200 milligrams, but we don't have a lot of data there. So as a reminder, the 5 milligrams of RG1 here is equivalent to what's in a normal 50 milligram dosage of Synactiv, which is what you're finding in a lot of products like the Leg Day, the Legend V2. And these are some of my favorite places to get it, albeit there are a lot of other spots to find it. In any case, I hope that all of this data was interesting and fun. I'm blown away seeing this stuff. It absolutely backs the things that I've been saying, that it's been helping me move more weight in the gym. I've been progressing through my lifts like crazy, adding like unseen amounts of weight to my progression. But also, I feel so much better after even training with those bigger weights. In the past, when I made these kinds of jumps in weights, obviously I was like hobbling the next day. My knees feel better, my muscles feel fresher, and I'm training at an all-time high in weight. So obviously, I'm crazy about it, but I do have to say, we got these products for free. We do have a business relationship for NuLiv. We do make promoted content for them. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we now have human clinical data showing some incredible things about what Synactiv can do. At least only one constituent in it is powerful. Imagine what the other ones can do for you as well. As always, guys, I really want to say I appreciate making this far in the video. Hopefully this was interesting. Sometimes this hardcore data stuff gets lost on a lot of our viewers that are more interested in the pre-workout reviews and stuff like that. But the point I'm trying to get across here is that pre-workout nutrition is a lot more than just stimulants and focus and pump. There's some ingredients that can really change the game in terms of your training and recovery, which is far more powerful than a lot of these natural muscle boosters you're going to find on the market, in my opinion. So if you have any questions about Synactiv, NuLiv, ginsenosides, astragalosides, any of the products you can find them in, feel free to comment below. I love this product and I'd love to talk about it more with you guys. As always, guys, I appreciate making this far in the video, and have a great day.
Welcome to PricePlow.